Hey guys, John back with another anti-guru video, and we are continuing our look at serviced accommodation. But I want to say hello. I want to say hello to everyone who is watching these videos. We put a lot of effort into bringing the anti-guru to you. I mean, we've built an entire YouTube studio in order to do it. Lights, camera and everything, and I hope a bit of action as well. And if you're enjoying these videos, then please hit the like button, leave me a comment. I answer every single comment I get, even the weird ones like "can we be friends?" ? No idea how to do that on YouTube. I'm learning as I go. Let's face it, I've learned how to do YouTube videos and build a YouTube channel from scratch during the 40 days of lockdown. So if I can do something like that, then I'm sure I can figure out how to friend people on YouTube. So just be patient, and if you know how to do it, then tell me in comments. Right, we're going to continue serviced accommodation, and I'm going to tell you where we're at, because when we left you, Mr. Parsnip, who somehow has managed to get some CPD certification, so well done to him. At least some of his education is certified as being of a standard. I did say he has a lovely course. My problem is the upsell. When we left Mr. Parsnip, we were talking about what was missed out, what was exempted essentially from the course. And what I want to do is try and fill in some of the blanks now. So I've been doing some research, and I've been doing some research because I've been writing a certificate of lawful use for serviced accommodation. I've actually been writing one up. So I've been doing some research on the case law, on the principles behind SA, on where it all comes from, and where it could possibly fit within the current framework. And where I get to, ladies and gentlemen, is serviced accommodation, unless the council specifically wants it to fall in a dwelling use, in it being part of a house, is not a house. Now, I'll tell you where I'm getting that from. Okay, so I've been doing some research on serviced accommodation. Now, I've been doing it for a certificate of lawful use. That's where we try and prove that a form of development is lawful, that we can actually just do it. And I've been looking into where serviced accommodation can fit within the current framework. I'm ignoring for the fact that it probably needs a new use class. And I'm ignoring for the fact that in the main, most councils default down the line of, well, it's probably sui generis to himself, to theirselves, to ourselves in Latin, inside its own unique bubble. I'm ignoring that, and I'm looking specifically at where it can fit. And I'm doing that because I need to help a client. Now, the earliest reference I can find to serviced accommodation comes in two places. We have that reference in the Greater London Act 1973. It talks about it being a material change of use from a home. Now, we know that, and that's because serviced accommodation was always originally meant for the lodger in the UK, or for a holiday home, or for a hotel. We also find reference to it in something a bit more recent. So we've got the Deregulation Act that I talked about last time I talked about SA. And we have Circular 03/2005. Now, this circular doesn't exist anymore, but importantly, it hasn't been replaced either. All the circulars were deleted when the new National Planning Policy Framework came into being, but they weren't all replaced. I've done a search, I can't find a replacement paragraph for this circular. And what this circular said, and it was para 59 for those supremely nerdy in order to look it up. In addition, short-term, i.e. purchased at a nightly rate with no deposit against damage being required, self-contained accommodation, sometimes called apart hotels, will fall into this class. The class the circular was talking about is C1. Now, I talk a lot about serviced accommodation. I talk about a lot to clients, and the reason why I talk about it a lot is because we're trying to find our way through the system. We're trying to find our way through the mire of what is planning lack of knowledge. And what we're trying to disaggregate is, where does serviced accommodation fall? Now, we all know what serviced accommodation is. It's a glorified hotel room. The person pays by the night or the week. You don't take a deposit for damages. They don't sign an AST. It's in and out. You do changeovers, housekeeping. You're effectively becoming Basil Fawlty. Many other comedy hotel managers are available for that analogy, by the way. For those of you who've never seen Fawlty Towers, go and have a look. It's on UK TV Play at the moment. I'm watching it back and thinking, yes, that's every serviced accommodation owner I know at the moment. So it's effectively a glorified hotel room, either in a house or whatever. Or it's like a holiday home or something like that. So serviced accommodation fits neatly in C1, fits neatly in the hotels class. The circular provides that definition for us, even though the circular doesn't exist anymore. That still kind of thought is still there. Now, the circular importantly gave a 90-night limitation. It said 90 nights and you're still technically in the hotel class. Now, that's very useful from our point of view, because then the London Plan standard, the London definition, more than 90 days, takes over after that. Sui generis. Not home. Not home yet. We're not home yet. So, when could serviced accommodation become a home? Here's the thing, ladies and gents. I think it becomes a home when it's a home. I think it becomes a home when you get to that critical moment where it is no longer a temporary place to sleep, where someone is effectively making their own. So serviced accommodation crosses that critical threshold typically when 6 months passes. Why 6 months? Well, that is when the Housing Acts tell you you must serve an AST. So it ceases to be a house at that point and becomes an AST, a home at that point. They're taking over control of the property at that point. That's quite a critical point to get through in any accommodation provider, and God knows what's going on in that person's life if they've been staying in SA for 6 months or more. But that's where it kind of fits. Now, obviously, if you've got more than 3 people living together, sharing basic amenity, you can make an argument for an HMO at that point. You can make an argument for that C4 use class, more than 6 persons. You're into sui generis again, albeit a different type. You're into the large HMO sui generis, which is different from serviced accommodation. Different things by fact and degree. Now, we've been having a lovely chat in the office about this and the activities of Mr. Parsnip, which in all honesty made every single one of my planning colleagues chuckle, because they all know who he is. And they all agreed that the generic solution given by the property education sector, that it generically falls into a house use, is incorrect. They all agreed, and we're talking about some planners who've got quite a substantial history in town planning. They all agreed that the generic solution is wrong, because every council takes it by fact and degree, based on their own experience, based on their own learnings and knowledge, and how it all falls together. So how can you, dear viewer, disaggregate where you're at? Well, I'm going to turn back to the case that I'm writing up. And this is the thing with being a practicing town planner. I can tell you what I'm doing. So in the case that I'm writing up, I'm dealing with the change of use, potentially, from an old hotel that hasn't been used since God knows when, to serviced accommodation in the form of an apart hotel. An apart hotel is effectively lots of little apartments in a hotel wrapper. How does that sound? That's like co-living, isn't it? Now we're making the argument, we're constructing the argument that because it's short-term accommodation, less than 90 days stay per room, that remains within the class C1 use. So hotel, as I've been saying for so long, is the perfect expression of the Airbnb, Booking.com style of serviced accommodation. We've had apart hotels in the country for a long time. They appeared in 2005 in a circular. And actually, weirdly enough, it's also in the current London plan. If you look at the employment policies, I think it's E11. In E11 talks of apart hotels being hotels for the purposes of planning. Now this is really quite important, because how many vacant hotels are there in the country right now? We are in the middle of this pandemic. We are struggling. We are breathing for air. And there are thousands of them. How many vacant hotels are there right now? That's quite an important thought to have, isn't it? Now, you know me. I'm a planner first. I've no course to sell. I've got no upsell. I don't believe in that kind of bullshit. I just get on with it. And I get on with it from a point of view of practice. What I'm doing right now. I hope that's been interesting. In our second video on the exploits of Mr. Parsnip, we've covered quite a lot about what serviced accommodation could actually be. We've disaggregated quite a lot of the myths there. I want to hear your comments. If you think I'm being too hard on Mr. Parsnip, if you've worked out, if you've put your finger on it and said, actually, I know who Mr. Parsnip is, then, and you think I'm being too tough, then please say. But I'm going to carry on with this thread, unpicking serviced accommodation, because it needs to be done. And it needs to be done to protect people. It does need to be done to protect people. Have a great day, everyone. Like, subscribe, comment. Please comment. I answer every single comment I get. And I will see you on the next video. If you're catching me from the rest of the world, thank you. Have a good one.